Hello, world, and welcome to What's Next. This afternoon, we have a guest that we've had on our show before. It seems that we discussed some things that we had a good time discussing things, but we didn't discuss what we wanted to discuss, so we invited her back again. I want you all to welcome again Miss Phillips, Miss Kenya Phillips. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Miss Phillips, we did want to talk to you about this particular subject. It seems that it's a very interesting subject, and I think a lot of the people need to know this. We were talking about bipolar and depression.
Right.
And we need to let the people know. Well, I think the last time you were here, you told the people about yourself. But if you want to, you could tell them a little bit about yourself before we get into this.
Oh, definitely. Just to kind of make sure all of us are walking together and on the same accord with one another. Again, my name is Mrs. Kenya Phillips. I'm married, been married for 3 years. I've been, as it relates to bipolar and depression, I've been with bipolar and depression for almost 13 years now. And we're going to talk a little bit about that throughout the course of today's show. But I'm also an advocate for persons who are also like myself, who are consumers who are dealing with depression and or bipolar. And I stand in the gap instead of just sitting down on it and hiding behind the walls. I have a husband who supports me and walks with me, and I have a support unit. And we're going to get into that a little bit later about the importance of support. But the key thing is, for me, is just to be present with you all today and to share with you my story along with sharing with you some statistics that will help anybody who is either an advocate, a person who is maybe a consumer, or a person who just wants to know a little bit more about mental illness and how to be at a safe place with it by releasing and not embracing stigma.
Now, we all hear a lot about bipolar disorder, bipolar, this, that. What is bipolar disorder?
Bipolar disorder, I'm going to give you the layman's version of what it is so that all of us can be on accord with one another. Bipolar is basically a mental illness where you have highs and lows. A person may have extreme where they may be, what doctors may say is called mania. On one end, is they have a high where they might just be antsy. They may be going to another extreme on the other end where it's considered a low depression where you just don't feel like doing anything. You barely want to get up. You may not want to even take a bath. You may not even want to move. But then on the mania extreme, it's like a person can be super talkative. They can be super where they're like always wanting to move. Antsy, can't be still. It's almost parallel to someone saying a person has ADD or ADHD because some of the symptoms kind of parallel each other. But it's a high and a low that cannot be managed other than with appropriate medication and also with appropriate support, meaning counseling and or knowing your triggers and knowing how to channel those things, the negativity side of it.
Now, a lot of people just simply say that's mood swings.
But it's deeper than mood swings because mood swings could come and go. It may be PMS, what some women may go through.
Right,
that's once a month. But we're talking about, if we want to say mood swings, you can't really say mood swings for something that lasts the rest of your life mostly. So like the onset of it may come for some people at the age of 8, typically between the ages of 18 and 21. If a person is going to go through it, it usually has between ages 18 and 21, female and or male. And with that stated, you know, a person goes through these different moods. It is a mood swing in some instances, but it's something that's beyond mood swing because you're dealing with highs, you're dealing with lows, you're dealing with a chemical imbalance, if you will. So even with the appropriate medication, a person still would need to know how to recognize the triggers, how to get counseling so they can know how to identify what's going on with them. They will also need to have a support system, even if it's not family, because some family, which is a whole nother dynamic in the African American community, particularly is not fond or maybe just not in the know of, ignorant, if you will, of what, not knowledgeable of mental illness, because the average person in the African American community is not going to go, oh, I'm going to check myself into a psych ward today because I'm going through a high or a low. That's not the norm for the
No,
community?
the average Black American, and they look at mental illness or bipolar disorder
Exactly.
as being something that you're supposed to, hide
Exactly.
or keep away from people.
Exactly.
It's something that I think maybe people will think something strange about me if I said something about that.
Exactly.
So.
Or the other extreme is over spiritualized. It's more so, when I say over spiritualized, if a person actually, the average person, if they go into a church structure and they say, okay, I have bipolar, or I'm dealing with depression, because the two are linked together, they're both hand in hand, most people are going to be like, okay, because I have this illness, that means I must not be saved enough. When in actuality, even when you go through the process, any type of healing is still a process. And if you don't recognize what your process is, or anybody who's going through it, you're going to stay at another place with that, whether it be a complete low or a complete high. And in the case of bipolar and depression.
I don't see that. People. I don't like to even start talking about that because there's a lot of things that comes into the realm of religion.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
And because when people start saying, the other people's talking and speaking in tongues or talking in tongues, there's some people who don't do that or don't understand that. Look at that and think that's kind of crazy.
Exactly. It all depends on what eye you come in with and what background, what knowledge you come in with.
And then as you're explaining this to me now, then mental illness, then in and of itself, can be easily dismissed as being just a mere disorder.
Exactly. It can be.
Yeah.
1 in 3 persons, the new statistics say 1 in 3 persons are dealing with some type of depression.
Some sort of bipolar
some type
disorder.
Start off with depression, and then it's like, within that, we're talking about millions and millions of people who actually deal with bipolar. And actually now, what's happening is kids are being diagnosed with bipolar at the age of 3 and 4 years old. So, it's a whole spectrum of things.
And that could be, bipolar can be classified as some symptoms of a mental disorder.
It definitely is.
Okay.
But it's a lot of ways to support. It's a lot of organizations like National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is NAMI. But then you have so many different organizations under the umbrella of NAMI. But NAMI would be a very supportive organization for the state of Georgia and abroad, because it's one of the oldest organizations to support. You're looking at things like within organizational structures, like having other people to identify with who are also going through mental illness, where you can hear other stories. The main thing is, for anybody who's dealing with mental illness, and even persons who may be a supporter or a care person of a person who's dealing with mental illness, is to have that support, to have someone that you can be honest with, you can talk to have someone that you can say, I'm not having a good day right now, and maybe they can just stroke the ego or stroke you in a way where it's like, you know what, you're not having a good day, but how are you feeling? It could be something as simple as you might just need to watch a comedy show for the day just so you can laugh. Also, it might be something as simple as a person may not want to clean up or anything. Their house looks, in so many words, it just looks a mess. And they might be like, you know what? It's a negotiation thing at that point. It's like, I'm going to help you with the floors. I might vacuum the floors. Someone else may be like, okay, you vacuum the floors. I'm going to actually put up the clothes. Sometimes it's a matter of creating a routine, discipline, structure, accountability, and all that goes into a lot of different factors. Just briefly, some people may have come from a divorced household like myself. I might have not had all the structure because I had a mother, but she did the best she could under the circumstances. But Dad was not always there in the way that I wanted him to be, but I understood what structure looked like when I talked to my father. So I'm saying you're dealing with those dynamics, and a lot of times what you'll recognize, I say that to say that a lot of times when you talk to people who may be dealing with bipolar or depression, you discover that structure is not there, disrespect for authority in a lot of situations, isolation, a lot of isolation, but on the flip side, very creative, very insightful, maybe very intelligent, but just needs appropriate channeling on how to deal with the heightened emotional level, because the heightened emotional level is present in both females and males, and knowing what to do with it.
Is it a way in which you could cause a person to become bipolar? cause a person to have bipolar?
I believe there are triggers there. You cannot cause a person to be, but there are triggers there. Some of those triggers may be something as simple as not having a structure, as I stated earlier. Structure in the household may be something as simple as parent works all day, parent works is never at home that much, and the TV is raising that child, so they're not really understanding what no means, what yes means, what is routine mean. And that's what you'll discover. A lot of people who deal with bipolar are not familiar with structure, routine, let alone having accountability and being assertive. Those things are key.
And because of that, that person could be, what I guess classified. Now you see, I'm trying to see if I can separate all of this
go ahead.
By saying bipolar or saying mentally challenged. This type of thing. It's
some of the terms that are used: bipolar, mental illness, mental disabled. Some people may say a chemical imbalance is one that's strongly used. So it's just different levels. It just depends on what type.
Oh, so when you I've always thought of a chemical imbalance as being one where either you drink a lot or.
That's the other thing. Bipolar also can be triggered through alcohol. It can be triggered through abuse. The triggering point's the onset. That's what I'm saying when I say triggers.
Okay. Seems that I have a question from an audience.
Yes, you do. We have a viewer who would like to know if you can specify how to diagnose what the person is, how they can know if this is what they are or not.
How you can detect bipolar in a person.
Okay.
How would you be able to identify it?
Definitely. Some of the symptoms of a person who's dealing with bipolar, again, most of the time the triggers are shown between ages 18 and 21. That's at least medically when they're acknowledged. Secondly, if a person's not, I'm just going to just do roll call, if you will. Some persons may say a person could be depressed for 7 days straight. Meaning, when I use the word depressed, I don't use it lightly. I'm saying like they're sleeping, they're not changing clothes, they're not taking baths.
Just don't want to do anything.
They don't want to do anything. Their hygiene is like, whoa, what's going on? They're complete isolation, not wanting to talk. They're completely opposite of where they were. So if they were a social person, they're the complete opposite. They're very pessimistic, very antisocial, not wanting to eat, not wanting any routine, let alone wanting to be around family, be around support, and also very agitated a lot through things that normally in the past did not agitate them. It could be something as simple as the smell of foods. Their nose might be having a hypersensitive situation going on. On the other extreme, where they used to work and perform pretty good or great, their work is at a suffering point. Everything is agitating from the standpoint of even dealing with coworkers and things of that nature. If they're younger, they might be involved in gangs or just feeling this need of support, but the support is not necessarily a support mechanism that is trustworthy. It's trust to them in the mindset of it's a rebellious type of support. It's like everybody around me is rebellious, so I'm going to gang up with somebody who's rebellious. So the person's not necessarily wanting to do something on what's considered the right track. They just need a system that's going to be, counteract that so that they can get back on that right track. But I would suggest to the viewers who are watching, if you would like to learn more about some of the directions that may have been taken in from different doctors and medically terminologies and also other support, I would definitely suggest looking at NAMI.org, NAMI.org, and on the website you will discover some of the different resource elements available in Georgia. Alongside, you will learn more about what different symptoms and trigger points there are within the bipolar depression, alongside some other mental illnesses that may be within.
That may come to play that they might.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is sort of like one of those wide, ever-spanning type of things where pretty much can be engulfed by a lot of people.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people that I can think of just offhand as you were talking. I can think of a lot of people who just withdraw from things. And they just withdraw totally. And we have another question.
Yes. We have a viewer who would like to know, what do you recommend that someone do to come out of their depression or bipolar episode? And also, with the Christmas, the holiday season coming up, can that be a trigger?
Yes. The first thing I would suggest is, it is holiday season, and happy holidays to everyone who's watching. Holidays is a very sensitive time of year for persons who deal with depression and or bipolar. One of the strongest suggestions for myself personally, what I have learned to do is, for coping mechanisms, is to be around people who love me. People who love you does not necessarily always mean family. It could mean whatever you identify as family. That does not always mean blood family. So if a person has a strong support group at church, if they go to church, go to church. If a person has a strong support system, it's like whether it's school, church, work, whatever you consider that support. Allow yourself to be whoever you can be yourself with, and be transparent with. Those are the people you need to, a person needs to surround themselves with. Secondly, exercise is good. It could be walking. It could be cardiovascular, just so many different levels of cardiovascular, stepping. Or it might just be simple, just walking around the house a little bit. Something that I've learned to do, and my husband's been very supportive of me with it, is I learned when I get off of work and everything to take off my work garments and to just be. That might mean taking a nice hot bath when I get in, relaxing, listening to some music that I love. It could be soul music, it could be the R&B. It doesn't matter. I have to do what works for me. So it relaxes me, it calms me down. Take an hour to myself, and then afterwards I fellowship with others who I love, whether it's my husband, whether it's the extended family. But I give myself time to just be and unwind, and I think that's very important for the mindset and also just for sanity.
Now that we've got that question, and it takes us into some other things. Now, you did mention something about a support group.
Yes.
Now, support group can be, as you were saying, could be your family or your friends or whomever that you love or whatever.
Right.
Now, that support group, if there are, let's just say, hypothetically, a person is suffering from bipolar disorder,
right,
and they find that they identify people that they care most about, like their family, and they find that they like to be around them, but there's some members of their family also maybe closet bipolar.
Right.
Yeah, and nobody knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that healthy, or is that a good way? Because I know that would be a support group.
Right. What's healthy at the end of the day is, one, being able to recognize the person who's dealing with bipolar, to be able to recognize what's going on with them, recognize their own triggers. Being around family, I use it lightly. Lightly in the sense of, family's good to be around. It's also good to have family members around who you could be transparent with and know what's going on. Because sometimes people have bipolar. That does not mean you have to announce it to everybody, because everybody does not understand it. Everybody may not have an open ear to want to understand. But if you have 2 or 3 people who live close by, who are within your family, who definitely respect and help you with coping, help the person with coping mechanisms and things of that nature, that's a great thing. But beyond the extended family and the direct nuclear family support, I would definitely suggest that a person finds a means of a support group of other persons who are dealing with the same chemical imbalance dynamics that they're going through, because then they can hear, and they go outside. Let's say a person smokes, for instance.
Right, like me.
See, a person may smoke and they may be bipolar. They realize they're not the only ones who smoke. Or let's say a person has issues with their family, or they can't really talk the way they want, or triggers go off, or they might be like, you know what, I get agitated at this, that, or whatever. They have other people they can be like, you know what, you're not alone. Let me show you how I deal with my agitation. In other words, it's a circle. It's kind of like when a person,
like a support group.
Yeah, it's basically a support group, but it's a closer level of support.
Yeah, like a lot of people
because they have something, it's one common thing in common. The depression / bipolar is the common factor, but they realize they're not alone. And if somebody else, going back to what you said, because I didn't forget about it, if somebody in the family does have bipolar and they are not aware, like you said, they're closet. Closet can mean two different things. Either they're aware or they're not aware. In this particular case, it's not necessarily for the person who has bipolar to be like, you know what, you're bipolar because your symptoms are like mine. That person who's bipolar, who may be stronger at their ease of being able to deal with their coping skills, if you will, that might be an opportunity for them to be like, you know what, they can share their story, and maybe in sharing their story, the person will recognize what's going on with them. But if they've been surviving for this many years, 10 years, 15 years, with not being diagnosed, that doesn't mean they don't need to be diagnosed. That just means they need to be exposed to what's going on. So it starts with storytelling, and even in support groups, they start with storytelling.
So if that person is in the closet, what if that person in the closet doesn't know?
That's what I was saying, storytelling. Because if a person is sharing a story with them, the storytelling with support groups basically means you share your story, but you share it in a way in which people can relate to what's going on with you and identify for themselves where the common factors are.
Yeah, it enlightens, it exposes facts to other folks.
Exactly.
Recognize
and it's very healthy.
Yeah. Now, in situations like that, do you suggest consulting with the physician, or?
100%. I would strongly suggest anybody who even has a hunch, whether it's themselves directly or if you have children, even if it's a family member that you're a caregiver for. Everybody should get physicals, just like you get a physical. It's okay to check in and get a doctor's review on what's going on with your mental. That's the only way you're going to know exactly what's going on. Because in bipolar and ADHD are so close, and ADD are so close, and particularly in the African American community, we have kids who are diagnosed even with ADHD at a young age, and now kids are being diagnosed with bipolar at a young age. But the two cross over. So seeing a psychiatrist, I say all that to say, seeing a psychiatrist or a counselor or therapist is very healthy and helpful with aiding in the correct diagnosis, and that's if there is a diagnosis.
I just thought, there are some kids who are acting up in school who could possibly very well be suffering from bipolar disorder.
I agree and I disagree. One reason I agree with you in the sense that there are a lot of kids who could be suffering with bipolar, but at the end of the day, I struggle with that one. This is just on a personal note because a lot of times, a lot of parents are not being parents these days. Some parents some parents are, but I'm saying if we have the appropriate parenting skills alongside structures, again, go back to structure, structure and routine and accountability for both the kids and the household at large, it can kind of eliminate some of those triggers that bring on the onset of bipolar.
Yeah, well, you said something earlier about, okay, we have another question, and we'll get back to this, too, because this is a good point that I'm going to make.
The viewer would like to know, how can we help those, our loved ones, who are diagnosed with this, if it's not us?
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, how can we help the loved ones, our loved ones, who has bipolar?
To caregive?
But we don't have it. But how can we help?
Got you. One of the ways that can be very supportive, and I'm speaking more so from a consumer stance myself at this point, one of the ways that can be supportive is, number one, listening, having an ear to hear, and even though the person, whether it's myself or another person who's also a consumer meaning a person who has bipolar and or depression, being able to identify and hear their needs beyond the space in which the other person sits. So
that means really listen.
Really listen.
You have to really listen.
If they're like, perfect example, I'm having a bad day, you may take lead and say, what does bad day look like to you? I might say, well, I don't necessarily feel so good. You may say, well, what does not feel good mean? So you're really listening, but you're being inquisitive beyond just settling with that first sentence.
People don't normally ask that. Like when somebody says, I have a bad day, you say, okay, what's wrong? What's the problem?
Right. Yeah. But that's the other thing. Most people who have bipolar or depression are not as direct as the average person is. They may not be as direct with what's going on with them. A lot of the feelings are bottled up. It's isolated thoughts. It's isolated feelings. It's almost like the person's in timeout, but they put themselves there. So you have to help them to come back outside of that box.
So in essence, what you're saying is, if they're talking to you, they're going to be talking in such a sketchy fashion where you have to ask those types of questions.
Sometimes it
in order
depends
to
on
pull
what
it
the
out
mood. That goes back to what you had described as mood swings. It goes back to what mood are they in, and helping them to identify and give a name to that mood.
Okay. All right. Anyway, what I was talking about now, I was about to ask you a question, and I think I've just about forgotten it now. but at any rate, I think I was about to ask you a question that, like if you, because I had asked you about consulting a physician, and you said you can go to a psychiatrist and this type of thing.
Right.
You know, and I was then thinking, if a person does have a bipolar disorder, and that person in turn confide in, say, someone else, like their friend or whatever, and they not necessarily understand, but somewhat ridicule it, which is not a good thing.
Right.
How it doesn't that affect the person that does have the bipolar?
It 100% affect the person who has bipolar.
Yeah.
And just I know we're short on time, but what I will say is that it's very important that a person who's dealing with bipolar and or depression to make sure they interact with positive people, and most importantly have a passion, keep their passion and their zest. But at the end of the day, it's about being around the right people. And sometimes the right people may be that support group, and it may not always be family.
Okay. All right. That's not the question I was going to ask you, but I did ask you the question. I had another question in mind. I've forgotten it. I've forgotten it, and it slipped my mind. But I want to thank you so very much for being with us and sharing that information with us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm hoping very much that a lot of people have gotten some helpful information from that. And if they need some more information, is there any way they can contact you?
Yes, it is. Actually, if it's okay, if it can be posted, if it can be posted, I will make sure I leave all the information.
Well,
but I can say direct.
Yeah. Do you have a website or something like that they can contact?
They can actually contact. It's two different places they can contact. NAMI.org, because I'm affiliated with NAMI. I'm one of the facilitators with NAMI, Georgia, and in fact I'm in the Fulton County with the Fulton County branch. So if you are seeking support, definitely give us a call there. One of the numbers you can reach us on is 678-668-1409, direct, where you can talk if you would like further insight into the NAMI, and or you can contact me direct in regards to if you're seeking counseling and or therapy. I'm also a behavioral specialist within the city of Atlanta. So let's make it happen and let's walk together.
All right, now would you give me that phone number again?
Sure. It's 678-668-1409.
Okay. Now, that's a way in which anybody can get some information. If they need further information about a bipolar disorder, or if they want to know a little bit more about someone who they might have bipolar, or if they want to identify someone, then they can get in touch with you or call you at NAMI.
Exactly.
Okay, good. That's good. And since we're about to close our show, I'd like to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all of that. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy whatever, Merry Christmas. And I want you all to have a wonderful time. Have a happy holiday, and I'll see you next year. And this is Willis Culpepper, and have